Family is supposed to be a support system, but what happens when a relative becomes a burden? I've always helped my parents, yet my freeloading brother, who refuses to contribute, acts like I owe him. When I finally said no to being taken advantage of, things escalated fast. Tensions exploded, and my final words left everyone in shock. Am I really in the wrong? Or is the truth just too hard for them to accept? Mom scolds me for not sharing more. Family is supposed to be a support system, but what happens when a relative becomes a burden? I've always helped my parents, yet my freeloading brother, who refuses to contribute, acts like I owe him. When I finally decided to stop being taken advantage of, tensions exploded, dragging the entire family into a fight. It all started on an ordinary evening. I got home late, exhausted from a long day at work. As soon as I stepped into the kitchen, I saw Mom standing there, arms crossed, a disapproving look on her face. I knew something was coming. "I don't understand why you can't share a little more," she said, her voice calm but filled with disappointment. I set my bag down, trying to hold back a sigh. I knew this conversation was inevitable. I just didn't expect it so soon. "Mom, I'm already doing my part," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I take care of myself. I buy groceries for you and Dad. I help around the house. What exactly am I doing wrong?" She blinked, clearly caught off guard by my response. "It's not about right or wrong, honey. It's about family. Your brother." I cut her off immediately. "My brother does nothing. He lives here for free. His wife does nothing. His kids have the newest iPhones, yet somehow I'm the one expected to make sure they have food?" Mom frowned. She didn't like hearing it, but she knew I was right. "They're struggling," she said, her tone quieter now. I let out a dry laugh. Struggling means working 2 jobs just to barely afford rent. Struggling isn't blowing money on luxuries and expecting someone else to put food on the table. Silence filled the kitchen. She had nothing to say. Just then I heard heavy footsteps coming up the basement stairs. Perfect. My brother appeared, arms crossed, a smug expression on his face. "Seriously? You had to run to Mom?" he sneered. "That's pathetic." I met his gaze head on. What's pathetic is mooching off our parents while pretending to be busy. His face turned red, but I didn't care. I knew I was right, and this was only the beginning of the biggest fight our family had ever seen. My brother confronts me aggressively. The kitchen was thick with tension. My brother stood in the doorway, arms crossed, his smug expression quickly shifting to anger. He didn't like being called out, especially in front of Mom. "You really think you're better than me, don't you?" he scoffed, stepping closer. I held my ground. "No, I just think I'm responsible for myself. You should try it sometime." Mom let out a tired sigh, clearly wanting to diffuse the situation. "Enough, both of you," she said, rubbing her temples. "This is ridiculous." But my brother wasn't done. He jabbed a finger at me. "You live here for free, same as me, but suddenly you're too good to help out? That's some real hypocritical shit." I let out a short laugh, shaking my head. "I help out more than you ever have. I buy groceries, run errands, do housework, and take care of Dad and Grandma. What do you do?" I paused, then answered my own question. "Oh, right, nothing." His face darkened, and for a second I thought he might actually take a swing at me. Instead, he clenched his fists and growled, "I work, you idiot. You think cleaning at a FIFO camp is easy?" I raised an eyebrow. "You work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And when you're home, what do you do? Sleep? Play video games? Complain that you're too tired to help out?" Mom tried again to step in. "That's enough. You two need to stop this fighting." But my brother cut her off, his voice rising. "I have a family to take care of. I have a wife and kids unlike you, who has nothing but a stupid job and your own damn self to worry about." I clenched my jaw, my patience wearing thin. "Yeah? And whose fault is that? You made the choice to have 4 kids when you weren't financially ready. You made the choice to blow money on video games instead of helping Mom and Dad with bills. You made the choice to freeload instead of stepping up. So don't stand here and act like I owe you anything." The room fell silent. Mom looked between us, her expression filled with exhaustion and sadness. "We're family. We should be supporting each other." I let out a slow breath, my voice calmer but firm. "I support you and Dad, Mom, but I'm not here to fund my brother's bad decisions. My brother shook his head in disbelief, then let out a bitter laugh. You're a selfish little bitch, you know that? I stared at him, unfazed. No, I'm just done being your safety net. With that, I grabbed my bag and walked out of the kitchen, leaving the heavy silence behind. But I knew this fight was far from over. The tension boils over. I stormed upstairs to my loft, slamming the door behind me. My heart was pounding, adrenaline still rushing through my veins. I had always known my brother was entitled, but tonight had confirmed just how deep his delusions ran. I dropped onto my bed, rubbing my temples. This fight wasn't just about groceries or rent. It was about years of resentment boiling over. I had spent my life being the responsible one, picking up the slack while my brother played the victim. And now, because I refused to keep enabling him, I was the bad guy? A sharp knock on my door snapped me out of my thoughts. Before I could even respond, my mom's voice came through. Sweetheart, can we talk? I hesitated but eventually got up and cracked the door open. She looked tired, more tired than I had ever seen her. Mom, I really don't want to argue anymore, I sighed. She nodded, stepping inside. I know. That's not why I'm here. I folded my arms, waiting. She sat on the edge of my small couch, taking a deep breath before speaking. You know your brother. He's always struggled. He's not as independent as you. I cut her off. Mom, he's not struggling. He's lazy. There's a difference. She flinched at my bluntness but didn't disagree. Instead, she sighed. He's a father now. He has a family to take care of. That pressure is his responsibility, not mine, I interjected. He made those choices. He had 4 kids. He refuses to budget. He refuses to contribute. And yet somehow I'm the one who's selfish for not handing him my paycheck? Mom looked away, guilt flashing across her face. I just don't want to see my family fall apart, she whispered. I softened a little. I knew this was hard for her. She had always tried to keep the peace, always tried to make sure we were both okay. But peace at the expense of fairness wasn't peace. It was enabling. I get it, Mom, I said, my voice gentler. But I can't keep giving while he just takes. It's not fair. She let out a slow breath, nodding slightly. I just wish he would see it the way you do. He won't, I said simply, because he doesn't have to. You and Dad have let him slide his entire life, and now when I refuse to do the same, I'm suddenly the villain. She didn't argue, because we both knew it was true. A long silence stretched between us before she finally stood up. I don't want to fight anymore, she said softly. Neither do I admitted. She gave me a small, tired smile and reached out to squeeze my hand before heading toward the door. But before she left, she turned back. For what it's worth, I am proud of you. The words hit me harder than I expected, but I didn't have time to process them, because just as the door clicked shut, I heard my brother's voice downstairs, yelling. This wasn't over, not yet. The breaking point. The moment Mom closed my door, I heard my brother's voice rising downstairs. His words were muffled, but the anger was clear. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I knew this wasn't over. I grabbed my phone and slowly made my way downstairs. As I reached the hallway, I saw my brother standing in the middle of the living room, red-faced and shouting at Dad. My sister-in-law was sitting on the couch, arms crossed, nodding in agreement with whatever rant he was on. I bust my ass at work, and somehow I'm the bad guy? Meanwhile, he gets to sit up in his little loft, hoarding his damn groceries like some selfish brat? My brother snapped, pointing toward the stairs. Dad, who had been quiet through most of our arguments, finally had enough. He set his glass down, looking my brother dead in the eyes. Enough, he said, his voice low but firm. But my brother wasn't done. He scoffed, throwing his hands up. Why are you defending him? He's living here for free, just like I am. I stepped forward. Yeah? Except I actually contribute. I buy groceries, I run errands. I help with yard work. What do you do? My brother whirled around, his glare locking onto me. I work. For 2 weeks at a time and then come home and do nothing, I shot back. You don't pay rent. You don't help around the house. You don't even lift a damn finger for Mom and Dad. His jaw clenched, but I wasn't finished. And you're mad at me because I won't hand over what I earn. Because I won't let your wife and kids take everything I buy. Like they always do? His wife jumped in now. We're family. You're supposed to share. I let out a bitter laugh. Funny how sharing only applies when it benefits you. Mom stood near the kitchen, wringing her hands, looking like she wanted to intervene. But this had been building for years. It was time for this to come to a head. Dad stood up now, looking directly at my brother. Your free ride is over, he said firmly. You've taken advantage of this family for too long. It's time to grow up. The room went dead silent. Even my brother's wife looked shocked. What the hell is that supposed to mean? My brother asked, his voice quieter now, almost uncertain. It means you're not going to sit in my house, mooch off me, disrespect your sibling, and contribute nothing, Dad said. You want to live here? Then start paying rent. Start helping out. Otherwise, find somewhere else to stay. My brother's face twisted in anger. You're kicking me out. Dad crossed his arms. I'm giving you a choice. Be a part of this family the right way, or stop expecting handouts. I expected another explosion, more screaming, but instead my brother just stared at Dad, stunned. For the first time, it looked like reality was actually hitting him. Maybe, just maybe, this was the wake-up call he needed. The silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. My brother looked around the room, his face cycling between shock, anger, and something else. Humiliation. He had never expected Dad to stand up to him like this. None of us had. His wife was the first to react. You can't be serious, she scoffed, standing up. Where are we supposed to go? Dad's face remained unreadable. That's for you to figure out. You're both adults. You've had years to get your lives together. My brother shook his head, laughing bitterly. Unbelievable. After everything I've done for this family, what have you done? I cut in. Because from where I'm standing, all you've done is take. His eyes snapped to me, his fists clenched at his sides. You think you're better than me, don't you? He spat. I didn't rise to the bait. No, I think I take responsibility for myself. That's the difference. Mom stepped forward, her voice hesitant. Sweetheart, maybe if you just... Dad held up a hand, stopping her. No, enough coddling. He's not a kid anymore. For the first time, my brother looked small. He turned to Mom, his voice quieter now. You're really letting him do this? His shoulders tensed before he let out a sharp breath. Fine, he muttered. If that's how it is, then we'll leave. My brother turned to me one last time. You'll regret this, he said, his voice low with anger. I met his eyes, unfazed. I really won't. And with that, he stormed off, his wife following close behind. Would he get his act together, or would he just find another way to blame the world for his problems? Only time would tell. But for the first time in years, I felt free.